flowers. It's in the Northeast, so it's the poppies. The September 12th workshop is called to order late. I apologize. At 6:10 p.m. We have a quorum with Mr. Rosales, Mr. Ramirez, Mrs. Woodruff, Mr. Pearson, Mrs. McLean, Ms. Duenas, and myself, Shane Haggerty. Secretary Duenas, will you please lead us in the pledges and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated.
Like we're all set. Using electronic voting, may I please have a motion on the order of the agenda?
Mr. Haggerty, I move that we approve the order of the agenda.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Go ahead and cast all votes. Not working. There it goes. Motion passes 7-0. Dr. De La Torre, do you have reports for the board?
President Haggerty, members of the board, guests, we do. We've got 5 presentations this evening. The first is a presentation around counseling services in the Ysleta Independent School District. I believe that presentation belongs to you, sir.
Sure. And this is a service that's offered by it's paid for by the Department of Defense, and we have 2 counselors here waiting in the wing. We're going to tell us about the services they offer. It would be at no cost to the district if this is something we'd like to pursue, but it's certainly something I wanted the board to be aware of and see whether or not you guys wanted to consider it.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? We wanted to give a little information about ourselves. First of all, my name is Melissa Herrera. This is Kobe. We wanted to give a little history. Even though we do work with Magellan Behavioral, we are a subcontractor with the Department of Defense. We currently work at Fort Bliss. I myself work on post at the different child development agencies located there and after-school programs, and Mr. Kobe specifically works within the school system with the El Paso Independent School District. We are also currently having counselors who are working with the Socorro Independent School District as well. Our mission is to specifically work with both on-post and within the schools to provide very brief, solution-focused counseling and therapy for those that we serve, both the military, military spouses, children of the military, as well as in Army and National Reserves. We are specifically funded by the Department of Defense. So pretty much the way me and Kobe work is we get paid by the Department of Defense, and all these different agencies, both on post and at the schools, have to provide is some form of space, whether it's a shared office or somewhere we can have confidential meetings with either children that are located within the school system or parents, whether those meetings occur before, during, and after school. Most of our referrals come from administrators at the schools, point of contact, command, sometimes the military chaplains, whoever they may be that refer us. We have brochures that we passed out to you in our folders. Those are also located at the schools we service as well as on post. We have phones with our phone numbers, so we're literally on call from 8 to 5, and we can also have voicemails left where we can be located and make appointments. Well, we are available to, as I stated, parents, as well as anyone that meets the criteria to meet with them, even after hours if necessary, because we do realize that a lot of people do not maintain the regular 8 to 5 schedule. The program originally started in 2006, and it actually started overseas. They saw the need to augment a lot of the services. The main reason they brought us in was because they didn't want us to document a lot of the problems that were happening. During this time, we were in times of war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they were noticing that there were some problems going on in the family system when the fathers or mothers were overseas. Children, as we know, usually demonstrate problems in the home differently than adults. And often, very often, those problems are exhibited in the school system, and they did not know how to help these children, so that's when they brought us in. One of the important things to mention is that we do not document our services to TRICARE, to any insurance, nor to their commanding officer. So when they meet with us, we do truly mean it's confidential. When we meet with them, we do not disclose who we're meeting with, their names, their phone numbers, nobody. As we stated, we also support teachers and administrators, because as we know, we also have many military spouses that are working as teachers in our school system, and it is very hard for them at this time, especially when their spouses may be working overseas for 1 to 2 years. So we also help the spouses out. They are meeting criteria for us to meet with them at that time as well. We also help them out, both when we have new spouses coming into the El Paso County system population, but also when they have to move and they need extra help and services, whether it be with their jobs, referring them to even getting their basic needs met, things of that sort. As I mentioned, we're specifically here to augment. We're not here to take over any services. So, I mean, obviously, we're not going to take the place of TRICARE, OneSource, the VA. Those are services that are totally separate from us. We're just here to specifically work on site with the children and the teachers that are there. So obviously, we do at any time feel the need that when we're working with the children or the adults that they need further services, further counseling, or any of that thing, we do definitely refer them to those services. As I mentioned, myself and Mr. Colby are local. A lot of what Magellan strives to do is to hire local counselors from the area so that they do recognize the children that come from our area, their needs. I myself attended school in the Ysleta school system. I attended Escarate Elementary, graduated from Riverside High School, went on to obtain my master's degree in UTEP. Yes, Hidden Valley. Colby himself, I don't know if you can give some history yourself also.
So I work at Chapin High School, and so typically at the school what happens is that we come fully funded by the government. We have a little space, or in my case, I have a big office. The school district provides that, and that's really all that we ask for is a space so we can come and work with the kids, and that's pretty much it. And so we work with a lot of the families, kids. I do groups at lunchtime. We can also give psychoeducational presentations to not only military, but also non-military. So everybody can be involved in that. But of course, the individual counseling is directly for military. And every school has each and individual needs. We also provide support to the staff. A lot of staff likes to vent and like to have consultations about, hey, what can they do with military members? And so we're there to lend an ear, but also help them in maybe things they can do to help the military. We also give referrals and help them get services that maybe people don't know. And so and each and every school has their own unique ways of how to deal with these kids. And so we don't do just counseling. We do a lot of other things. Me personally at Chapin High School, I orientate them and do basically, when they come in, they're new, I basically help them with whatever they need to do. And so that's basically a brief introduction of what I do.
Do we have any questions up to this point? Otherwise, I'll hand it. I don't know, Mr. Kobe wants to add anything. But one of the things we do also do is we do, like Kobe mentioned, extra classes to help either administrators, teachers, or students in the classroom to do anger management, how to help the children deal when their parents come back, because as you can imagine, they're very hyper vigilant with things going on, so they're not going to return to normal life right away. things of that sort. Also, any aggression, things that may be going on in the life of the child that is not going to return right away.
So if you, do you have any specific questions on?
I don't have any questions. I do have a comment. Since I've been working at one of the youth centers there at Fort Bliss, I've had the opportunity to see both Melissa and Kobe in action. And what I love the most is certainly they're there when the center is having an issue with a student who has behavioral issues, and they are extremely attentive to them. At the same time, they're attentive to everybody that walks through those doors, whether they need specific counseling or not. They're there to engage and interact with the kids, and they've made a positive impact on the center that I've seen. And I absolutely, I think the word, if you have any questions, I'll certainly please ask, because I think it's a fantastic program, and I love it. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, have you helped any of our school district schools on any other students? Do you have a list of all the military families that we have here?
Yeah. Recently there's been a surge definitely in Ysleta as far as military students, and I know I've worked with them as far as the youth center where Shane is. But personally, but right now we do not have any MFLCs there at Ysleta, and they're hoping to change that. And again, it's free, and that's all you would, again, well, we just provide a classroom or an office, but currently we do not serve any Ysleta district at all.
Because we do have a lot of military in Ysleta, and they do, as a matter of fact, we just had a father that came and surprised their daughters, and it was a big help to see him when they arrived. But, you know, the counseling helps a lot, and this is a very good program. I think that it would help a lot of our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further questions. Thank you both very much.
The second presentation this evening is from Trustee Mike Rosales surrounding the Rio Grande Council of Governments. Mr. Rosales? I think you can do it from your... Yes, sir.
Good evening. I have served with the Rio Grande Council of Governments for the last year and a half, and it's been a real eye-opener. It's been a real pleasure getting involved and understanding what this organization is all about and what they do and what they accomplish. The organization consists of 35 individuals led by Annette Gutierrez, who I was hoping would be here so I could introduce you to her. She is the executive director, and it also it comprises of the leadership of the counties of El Paso, Hudspeth, Culberson, Jeff Davis, Brewster, Doña Ana, which is in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and the city of Las Cruces. I just want to very briefly give you a rundown on some of the things that occurred in the August 20th meeting. I'm not going to touch on everything, but on August 20th, there was a presentation by Dr. Garcia, David Garcia, and he had an individual make a presentation regarding Parkinson's, and we very seldom ever equate Parkinson's with our diet, and according to the information that was provided by him, a lot of the neurological disorders that affect us, that are affecting us, is a direct, if you will, impact of the chemicals, pesticides, and herbicides that we are all constantly confronted with. We don't think about these things, but it's something that has got to be looked at a little bit more quite a bit more seriously than it has in the past. The man's name is John Hamilton. He contracted Parkinson's at the age of 64, I believe. Just very vibrant man, and he struggles, and it was quite an emotional experience to see him and hear him out. They have a budget like the rest of us, and I sit on the finance committee, and a very, very well-oiled organization. They also entered during August, they entered into an agreement to provide regional law enforcement training with the El Paso County Sheriffs. Excuse me. There was also they had the 7th annual Aging to Perfection Expo, which was held September the 7th at the Convention Center. And this focuses on awareness of available resources for the elderly and family caregivers. Again, unless you've lived the caregiving or caregiver life, it's quite a traumatic experience to work and live with person in your family that is contracted or has come down with some of these diseases. The July meeting was, they also brought out the summer initiative. There was employment for children in Van Horn, Presidio, Alpine. Also, they are involved with the solid waste management funding for East El Paso, Fabens, the Upper Valley, which is Gallegos Park and Westway. They're also involved with the state emergency communications, and this is an effort to, I guess, coordinate the 911 to the best of our ability. We live in a very precarious time in our lives, and as things have happened, not as you recall, yesterday was a very momentous day in the history of the United States. So as we communicate better, the better off we are to protect ourselves. We also, they presented a Texas computerized criminal history status on criminal records for every county in Texas. So now they're going to be able to integrate, to find out what an individual might have done in other counties throughout the state of Texas. The last point that I'd like to make, they also get involved with helping individuals that need assistance with maintenance of their home. Project Bravo Paint-a-thon will be held this fall, and it's going to include 15 people to include the UMC employees, where they go out and paint a house that afternoon, or shall I say a couple of homes. But up to now, it's been a real pleasure to be a part of that organization. One last point that I'd like to make is there's a El Paso County Dispute Resolution Center. And here, instead of individuals having to hire an attorney, they can go to the Rio Grande Council of Government with a lady by the name of Marisa Quintanilla, and they can establish a rapport with the people that they've got an issue with. And they really try and resolve these issues as they come up. And it's a cost savings measure for the public. In closing, I also would like to make sure that President Haggerty is also recognized, because he also serves in the committee. And it's been a real joy, and I just wanted to touch with you guys a little bit of what has been going on. And I look forward to continue working with that organization. Any questions? Make it easy.
Where's that button? Where's that?
Hard questions are out there.
It's not a question. I just wanted to say you did a great job presenting. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any questions from the public? God, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our third presentation will be presented by Mr. Pat O'Neill, Associate Superintendent Operations, and it is the monthly bond project update.
Good evening. Now we're ready to
Yes,
go.
sir.
All right. This is your monthly report. This is a feature we started to the last board workshop, and we gave you an update from when the bond passed, really up to August the 8th. This report will be from August the 8th to September the 12th. Real quickly, there's 44 slides. I'm going to go through them quickly, and I will answer any questions that you might have at the end. We're going to show you the bond team real quickly, because we have a new member of the VLK team that might, his name might be familiar. You might recognize him, and that's Adrian Stressau. Adrian, if you will please stand, be recognized. We're excited to have Adrian back. So thank you for joining us, Adrian. One of the nice things about having Adrian, of course, he has a historical perspective with the district. He knows how the system works, and he will be able to assist VOK through the bond process. We have currently 6 bond projects that are under construction. We're going to review each one of them very quickly. The first one we're going to talk about is the auxiliary gym, the floor, and the seating at Del Valle High School. The construction is 75% done, and the way you can look and see, if you look down at the bottom, you'll see this, excuse me, go back. What we did is put this line here, and you can see if you look, the blue line takes you through August the 8th, and then the yellow tells you where you were from August the 8th to present. But the floor is in. It's gorgeous floor. In fact, the kids like it better than the main gym because of the way the design of the floor. The administration did a wonderful job picking out the color scheme and the design for it. But there's a few minor issues we're still dealing with, but they're very small, so it's substantially completed. Now, the bleacher installation should take place, and we should have it in place by the end of October. And the reason it's behind a little bit is because we had to add ADA compliance, some seating issues there. But so far, it's looking good. It's quality floor. Kids are excited. Administration is happy. Now, with the outdoor athletic enhancements, all the turfs have been done. All right, all 7 fields are complete. There's a few minor issues that we're still dealing with, cleaning up some lettering at one of the schools, color at another school, but for the most part, they are done, and everyone is excited. We did a ribbon cutting last week at Bel Air High School, went very well. The outcome of the game was a heartbreaker, but the kids really played well. This week, we'll be at Riverside High School. Now, for all the athletic outdoor enhancements, the lights are all up at all the fields, at the tennis courts, at the baseball field, and the softball, except for at Eastwood. If you will recall, at Eastwood, we were trying to fit the softball field on the campus. We did everything we possibly could to make it work, but we just couldn't. So we're going to keep the softball field at Scottsdale, so they're a little bit behind, but the lights are up at all the other facilities. The only thing that's lacking on the outdoor enhancements is sound systems and the perimeter fencing at the baseball and softball fields. But you'll get a look at each one of the schools. I'll go through there very quickly. There's Bel Air High School. You can see the Del Valle field, the lighting, perimeter fencing. There's Eastwood High School, the lighting at the baseball and the tennis courts. And speaking of Eastwood High School, I'll just real quickly, we've started to meet with community groups. We met with the faculty and started talking about the transition and, getting ready with all the construction. We will be coming back to you shortly with a plan, talk more about that at a later date. We have Hanks High School. Look at their field, their baseball and softball field. If you will recall, we're gonna build new tennis courts, which not part of the bond, but we're able to provide funding for them, and that is almost completely designed. We'll begin the construction there very shortly, and then we'll put the lights up at the tennis courts. A good look at Parkland High School. Their lights at their baseball and tennis courts. Riverside High School, the lighting. Ysleta High School football field.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes, ma'am.
going back to Riverside High School,
Yes, ma'am.
just for the record, when are they going to do because some of the letters like at Riverside, the S is larger than any of the other letters. And then on the Rangers, the G and the S are larger than any of the other letters, instead of being straight. When is that going to take place?
It's going to be right after the start of football and before soccer season gets underway. We have not got a confirmed date, but we all agreed that it would be done after the football season. We didn't want to not allow the kids to have the opportunity to use that field, so it'll be done after football.
Good, because I'd hate for them to leave since they're an out-of-town contractors.
They won't leave with their paycheck, though.
Okay, good.
So they'll be hanging around till they get that last check.
Just want to make sure Riverside gets done.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, the district-wide security entrance. These are the completed schools. All the schools have been completed. Some of the schools were not included in the bond project, but we were able to go ahead and pick them up with local funds, so all the schools are done. One of the things I'm asking for everybody is part of the secure entry is the hall pass. That's when you come in and show your ID. I'm showing my ID. If you will go out and help model for us, show your ID. Everybody knows who you are. But it's just a good practice that you show your ID. They quickly entered into the system. Second time around, it's very easy. But it's been very successful. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the community. They really appreciate it. One of the features that we're still working on, it's up, is the card swipe. I think you've heard us talk about that. Staff members will be issued a card. Once the doors are locked, they'll be able to enter. All right, the cards are on order. We are working with the campuses to identify those employees that need to go ahead and have a card.
Mr.
And there's-
O'Neill, can I
yes.
ask one question?
Yes, ma'am,
I'm sorry
please.
to interrupt. I was wondering, I noticed on your list of schools that Hillcrest is on the list, and so I'm assuming that means Bel Air Middle.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then my only other concern was the Young Women's Leadership Academy. Is it?
They also, it was part of it. They've had their system in. We got it in early because the girls started a little bit earlier than the other schools. But
No,
yes,
it's
ma'am, they
just
both
not
have.
on the list then?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
it is in.
It is in and it's up. Yes.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've learned, we went through this very quickly because we had promised that we would have it up and ready to go. So we're doing ongoing training. And as you go through scenarios, you know, things that you don't train on that'll come up. You know, how do you handle this situation? So leadership next week, we're going to have a breakout session where we're going to bring the principals in and talk to them specifically about those different scenarios they might have faced that we could all learn from as we go forward.
Mr. O'Neill, I ran into that issue about maybe a week or two
Yes, ma'am.
but I wasn't aware of the situation. But my principals were aware that I was going to be going. So, but I didn't have my ID with me. And it was a big, big problem.
And that's one of the things that we are working out the kinks on. Now, one of the things is
But
that
you should have a deadline for that because we weren't aware of that.
that's something we'll work on. Yes, ma'am.
And it'd be better that we are all aware of it. I wasn't, and in the last meeting, I wasn't here, so I wasn't told anything. So when I do go to my schools, I can't go in, and they say you can't go, and I can't be going back and forth. I took time off from work. So I gotta make sure that we gotta be in there and not get stuck in a situation like this.
Absolutely. And we have scenarios just like what you're explaining. And then we have parents maybe that don't have an ID card. So how do we handle those? We enter them into the system, and then they become part of our system. Because we realize that not every parent's gonna, or grandparent might have an ID card. But there is a process to handle those.
Now, can you come up with a better solution than a date of birth? That's one of the problems with a lot of the people. They don't want to give their date of birth.
And that's one of the scenarios, yes, that we've been talking about. But we'll work on it to get better, promise.
Okay.
All right, Parkland Middle School additions and renovations. Phase 2 we brought to you last month, and that had to do with the demolition. The demolition has started, should be finished in October, and then we'll be bringing back Phase 3. You could look and see some of the scope of the work on your left-hand side of the page. That's the camera, the Ox Blue camera, that actually gives you an up-to-date picture. And you can go on our bond web page and access that and keep up to date on what's happening at Parkland Middle School. Structural remediation at Riverside High School. The classrooms, hallway have been turned over. Middle school, excuse me, thank you. Middle school, and those classrooms have been turned back over to the school in the hallway. A few small punch list items that we're still doing, but for the most part, that one's 100% complete. Then if you look at Constance Holbert Elementary School, classrooms, there's no delay. They were able to get in there the first day of school. So there was no delay to that project. Yes, ma'am.
I see something here by the window on the second picture. What is that?
The bulletin board, or,
No, it looks like a little table or,
yes, that's the
oh, it is.
countertop.
Oh, okay.
It's part of it. And if you go to the other end, there's bookshelves just opposite, if you could have seen that. Couple small punch list items, they're in there this week, should be finished by next week.
Is that the wall where the sunken wall was?
That was one of them. Remember, what we had done there is we cut out a piece of slab all the way around all those walls and went back and repoured it to ensure that there isn't any movement.
Okay.
Now, projects that are currently under design, there's 7 projects that are currently under design. That's Bel Air Middle School, Eastwood Knolls, Tierra del Sol, Desert Air, Del Valle Middle School, Mission Valley Elementary, Thomas Manor, Ysleta Middle School, and Rio Bravo, and Eastwood High School. All right, the new Bel Air Middle Schools, you can see the construction documents. They're at 90%. Once they're at 100%, then we will put that project out to bid, and it will be a CSP. Concealed, competitive sealed proposal, which we will bring back to you. And you'll be very excited about that school. It's going to be really a unique design to it because of it's got like 3 levels to it. So it'll be very unique, very different. A little bit of a diagram of the floor plans. On your left-hand side is the school. On your right-hand side is the gym. Eastwood Knolls is going to get a new gymnasium. They did not have a competitive gymnasium. They will also redoing the old cafeteria into fine arts area, and then they'll get some life cycle work. It is currently out for bid. In fact, tonight we're bringing it to you. Just the drawings. Look. Tierra del Sol Elementary, they're going to get a new kitchen cafeteria as well as some life cycle construction documents that are 100%. The bidding is this month. We will be coming back next month. There's a floor plan. You can kind of see it's not real good, but that's what it's going to look like. Yes, sir.
We're going state of the art.
Yes, sir. It'll be refrigerated air in all our new projects. Desert Air Elementary is getting a new kitchen cafeteria as well as some life cycle work. Bids going out will be a CSP. Floor plan is very similar to that of Tierra del Sol. Our new combo school. All right, this is we're going to go, as you know, consolidate Camino Real and Valley View Middle School, as well as build a new Mission Valley Elementary. Thomas Manor Elementary School, we consolidated Cadwalder and Thomas Manor. The students from Thomas Manor are currently being housed at Cadwalder, while we will demo that building and build it completely from the ground up. We had charrette number 1 a week ago. We will do the second charrette tomorrow night. They came up with some very unique design. The architect is a Riverside graduate, him and his brother. Very excited about them being able to do this project. He's really jumped into this project. But you can see some pictures of the charrette process and how it went. Some additional pictures. Rio Bravo was our second school that got a gym because they never had a competitive gym. They will now have a brand new state-of-the-art gym for middle school athletics and competitions, as well as some life cycle work. Construction documents are at 90%. Once they're at 100%, we'll send it out for bid, and that'll be going out for bid in October. Eastwood High School additions and renovations, we've already, as I had stated, we've started talking to community members, started talking to the faculty about what they can anticipate for the next 2 years, and we're right up front. They're going to be uncomfortable for 2 years, but at the end of the rainbow, it's going to be a great school for that community, something they can be very proud of. Design development, it's at 50%. When it gets to 100%, then we do the construction documents. We're hoping, not hoping, but we will go out for bid in spring. School will open up in August of 2019. So it's going to take 2 years to complete this process. What we had done to help speed up the process and also lower the cost is, instead of doing in phases, I think when we originally brought it to you, we talked about, remember, moving kids around the campus, moving ninth graders over to Eastwood Middle. We're going to do that, and we're going to start having community meetings, talking to the community about that. But we're going to go ahead and move the kids into portables, okay, where the baseball field is and where the current parking is right behind the stadium. That way we can go ahead and demo the whole building and get in there quickly and get that program project started right away. Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
O'Neill, can you go back? All this white on the building, is that glass or?
It will look
paint?
like glass.
Oh, it's not glass?
A lot of it is glass, but it's not 100% glass.
And how many floors is that?
Oh, part of the building, one wing will be 3 stories, the others will be 2 stories. We're going to keep the 900 wing. I'm not sure if you're familiar. That's the wing that it was most recently built. It's between the baseball field and the parking lot behind the stadium. There's a wing of classrooms, like 9 classrooms with some restrooms. It's in good shape. There's no need to demo that. We will keep that area, that new 2-story lab that's on McRae. We will keep that. And then we'll keep the fine arts, the library, the administration area. We're going to go ahead and renovate that and create a counseling area.
With the science wings, that's fairly new, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am, and that's the reason we're going to go ahead and keep it. That's the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any additional questions you might have. Yes, ma'am.
So there's Ysleta employees that work in the operations area that are assigned to these bond projects, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is it that they do versus what BLK? What is the distinction between the BLK assigned project managers versus the Ysleta employees that are assigned to these projects?
I'll give you a classic example. When we get an invoice from a contractor, we have 3 layers to the process. We have our people that review the invoice. BLK has their people that review the invoice, and then we sit together and agree to what partial payment or what payment is actually due. That would be one example. Our people are more, they're out on the field once a week. We're out there multiple times during the week at these different project sites. But we sit and meet and work together in order to really provide on time, within budget, and quality. So we're more, I would say, we're out there a lot more than they are. They go out once a week at minimum, and then we work together. We have what we call a team meeting every Monday morning, and then we come back in the afternoon and have an owners meeting.
Because my understanding was when we brought VLK in, that they were going to act like our operations department, because it was such a massive undertaking that we were going to rely on this professional organization to oversee. So I'm kind of concerned about this, that we still have our own Ysleta employees still doing the work that I thought was going to be done by VLK.
And you brought up a great point when you said they oversee the bond project, and they do, and they're helping us through the process. They put together the bid packages. They do all those oversight things where we're actually hands-on out in the field, and then coming back and meeting and comparing notes. And then we'll go out with them together at times.
Now, this work division, is this outlined in the contract?
Yes, ma'am. It is in the contract, and we talk about the contract all the time. I promise you, there's debate about the contract.
Let me ask you one other question. With regard to when there is a project that's sent out to bid, and say it's the amount is X, right? That has been approved by the voters. And when that project comes in X minus Y, the difference, right? what is happening with that difference? Because on one of the projects that I've seen, and then I've seen two now that come to mind, that we're checking off all the boxes of the projects that were approved by the voters, but then there's these miscellaneous projects that were not approved by the voters that are being put into this bid proposal that's being approved. Now, I've got a concern with regard to that.
If you can give me a specific, because we cannot spend bond money on anything that isn't approved by the voters, and we have.
Right, but the thing that was sent to the voters was the very general categories of we're gonna spend athletic enhancements of X, right? I'm talking about the detail of we're gonna do the roof, we're gonna paint, we're gonna do, and so we're getting that done, plus then, because it was an estimate, I understand that whenever that went to the voters, that it was an estimate, and that you all tried very hard to make sure that there was enough money so that we didn't come out short. But in the interim, I've seen at least two projects where there's been additional.
What VLK had done when they prepared for us how much these projects were going to cost, they were very specific and listed what was included. I can tell you our internal bond auditor, not auditor, but manager, Richard Morales, he is very particular. He has that list, and if you try and vary off that list, he stops it from happening. That's part of that owners meeting. So I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but I can tell you from my experience, that's part of our discussions on those Monday meetings. If it's not on that VLK list, how they came up with that budget and that, you know, our final budget that we took, and there isn't something specific, it doesn't go forward. And that's my experience, and there's been conversations about that, but he's very adamant, and he's good at his job, and he holds our feet to the fire.
Well, let me look back, because I don't have specifics right now. So let me look back, and then I can talk to you
Please
about
do.
this. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. In reference to what Ms. McLean is saying, for example, in the Eastwood project, if we go, and we are creating Fort Eastwood, so to speak, what is a positive part of doing that in terms of time?
As far as like what we talked about, instead of phasing that
Yes, in
project,
comparison to the phasing.
instead of phasing it, we're going to save money and time. By going ahead and moving all the students and teachers into portables, we're going to be able to save that time instead of phasing. Because remember, for every year that you add, there's the inflation.
Exactly.
And there's other school districts that are talking about bonds, and the longer we drag this out, and if they pass their bond, now we're going to be in competition for subcontractors, contractors, and so it's to our benefit that we go ahead and move through this with quality as quickly as we can.
Any estimate time-wise of what we'd be saving?
Money-wise? No,
No,
sir.
time.
Oh, time? I would say up 6 to 12 months, easy.
Which kind of correlates with your question, because that's a perfect example how by doing certain things, we still can provide everything that we told the taxpayer and then allow us those savings. Okay, so that, but up to now, I feel very confident that we're on the right track.
Yeah, and we have yet to exceed any projected budget on any project or any design work. We've consistently come in under the projected budget. Even when we've had to make an adjustment and increase the budget, it's increased, but it hasn't increased enough to be over budget. So we're still capturing a lot of savings by being meticulous, as Mr. O'Neill pointed out. That money isn't being spent or being dedicated to any project, because we know that in the world of construction, just because everything's going well right now doesn't mean that something at the end could not come in over budget. Then we'd have to come back to the board and say, by the way, we've collected, for illustrative purposes, $11 million. Eastwood High School is going to come in at $1.4 million more than we anticipated, but we have this $11 million pot over here. May we go in and get that so we can deliver what we presented to the community?
And give you a classic example what Dr. Delatorre is talking about also. If you remember pre-Katrina, the square footage to build a school in this area was about $150. After Katrina, it jumped to $180 per square foot. So that's the benefit of going ahead and moving at this rapid pace to go ahead and get these projects in. Yes, ma'am.
When is demolition for Thomas Manor?
It's going to start, I believe, in October and finish up in December. It's going to happen here pretty quick.
Is everything out of there already, or is
What
pretty much-
we have done is we allowed the former principal to go ahead and take all those items she wanted to, and we moved them over to Cadwalder, and then they kind of placed them, and the ones they didn't need, we moved them and let the other campuses come and use them. We've also had our operations team go in there and salvage items. Maybe there's a door, there's certain things that we can use in other schools. The bleachers in the gymnasium will be moved over to the auxiliary gym, because if you remember Riverside at the auxiliary gym, they really didn't have bleachers.
No.
So we're taking those bleachers, it's a good example, and doing it. The picnic tables are going over to Riverside High School.
Great.
So we're able to use as much as possible.
I know one of my principal has gone over there and done a little bit of a.
They all have, yes, ma'am.
And that's good, because that's what I pretty much, whatever you can salvage from those schools would be good.
And we're using,
And the
yes,
bleachers, where are they going, to Riverside High School?
in the auxiliary gym.
Good. Okay, thank you.
So we're using everything, making good use of everything.
Mhm.
Thank you all very much.
Presentation number 4 is surrounding our health plan and our health plan update. Mr. Randy McGraw is with us this evening.
Good evening, Board President, members of the board, and the public. Dr. Delatorre. I'm Randy McGraw with Hub International Insurance, and I'm here to give you an update on the performance of the health plan. Much better news and forecast than when I saw you about 3 or 4 months ago. It's also one of our shortest presentations. What we have on the screen for you right now is just an executive summary, gives you a snapshot of the last or the current year-to-date and the prior 3 years in terms of total claims paid, and also gives you some metrics on breaking down the average cost per member per month, per member per year, and per employee per year. So right now, basically, the data that we have available that's incorporated in the forecast is data through the month of July in terms of formal reporting that's generated by Aetna. I did see some preliminary reports that came through just over the weekend that showed the claims expense for the month of August. Summer months, like we've talked about before, tend to run a little bit higher in terms of claims costs for employees for most school districts, and August was no exception. Total claims paid for the month were about $3.8 million in August. It's the highest month that we've had this year. However, August of 2015, last year, was at $3.9 million. So it's not abnormal to see the claims swell during this point in time, but it's right in sync. It's no worse than it was a year ago, and that's good news. And feel free to stop me if you have any questions along the way, please. Page number, go ahead.
I have a question. Are the bills getting paid on time with, it's not being delayed or anything like that?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. There may
Because
be,
you know how some of them are kind of delayed and it piles up and piles up. And at the end of the year, a lot of the are not caught up.
from what I can tell, at least on a big picture basis, the claims are processing within expectations, which is about 95% of all the claims are processing once they're received within less than 14 days. So the lag time, though, there might be a lag time in the time when a claim is incurred before it gets submitted, and that might pile up towards the end of the year. But from what I can tell, everything is meeting the expectation. Slide number 3 just gives us a historical picture of your enrollment going back to January of 2014. And basically, there have been no rate or benefit changes since January 1 of 2014, and consequently, Your enrollment in the 4 different plans that are offered has stayed very stable over time. Page number 4 is a tabular chart giving you a comparison of the 2 prior years and the current year to date. And there's a couple of key things. I'm going to play with some of your tools here. It's a nice system you have that I think that are important on this page. So oops. I'd have to practice on this. Over on the right-hand side, average PMPM, which stands for per member per month. This gives us an idea of the average cost per covered person in terms of their claims expense this year through July compared to the prior years. So we can see in that upper right-hand quadrant, the total average cost per member per month for both medical and prescription drugs is currently at $414 per covered person. Last year, for all of 2015, thank you, it was at $419. So it's trending up a little bit, which isn't totally unexpected, but it's much less than what a lot of other plan sponsors and employer self-funded plans are seeing. You can also, if you want to look at the chart, see how the costs break down between different plans and relationship, whether it's the subscriber, meaning the employee, the spouses, or the children that are covered under the plan. One of the key things that I like to look at on this report too, and I try to make a habit of pointing it out to you each time I'm here, on the left-hand side, well, it's not pointing, but on that row that's kind of tan colored, there we go, average medical savings. This is a good barometer to check the ability that Aetna has to negotiate price with hospitals and doctors, et cetera. And you can see in the prior years, 2014, 2015. In 2014, we had migrated to Cigna, and we were averaging a 68% or almost 69% discount off of billed charges, which was pretty good. That contract in 2015 eroded somewhat to 64.8. Last year during the RFP process, we did a lot of testing, statistical testing on the various bidders and their ability to negotiate price. And Aetna was certainly one of the higher ones, and they had scored at about the 66% threshold. And so currently they're performing at 67.5, which is exceeding the expectation. So that's a good positive sign that I'm seeing in this chart here. Page number 5 just gives us a historical map of the average costs by plan over time. And we can see 2014 was the last time we made major changes in terms of plan designs and rates and funding, et cetera. There are 4 linear charts on here, 4 linear graphs that reflect the average cost by plan. And the bar chart gives us a moving average cost of the entire population as a whole. So we can see that there's actually these last few months in the bar chart show a slight decrease, which is a good positive sign in terms of the forecast looking forward. Page number 6 is our math for the forecast for the next plan year, which begins on January 1 of 2017. And I'd be happy to walk through any of the assumptions or the math behind it. The most important number to look at is in the lower right-hand corner in red, and that would show if we don't change any benefits, what would need to be changed in terms of contributions from the employer, meaning Ysleta YISD, or employees through their own payroll deductions without making any benefit changes. When we were here back in June, I believe it was, the forecast was predicting about a 9% increase come January. But you have to understand that in June, we were relying on data basically through April, and that wasn't very much Aetna data. That was primarily a lot of data from from HealthScope benefits that was flowing into the 2016 plan year. So with more information now that we have through July, it's actually showing a positive trend. It would say that we would need a 3.37% increase in funding if we wanted to meet our target, which was to establish a fund balance of about $4.8 million at the end of 2017. what our modeling right now is showing is that we would anticipate that at the start of January of 2017, your fund balance would be in the positive, which is a goal we've been working towards since January 1 of 2014, of about $644,000. And if we don't raise rates or do anything, we feel that by the end of 2017, you would be at $1.4 million, which is good. The target is 4.5, so we're not there yet, but we're moving in the right direction. So the recommendation after discussing with administration and going over the pros and cons of change, et cetera, is neither us nor the district is recommending that we change any benefits or we change any payroll deductions on the health plan for January 1 of 2017. We're seeing some positive movement and improved performance of the health plan. And so we think that you're going to be good to go all the way through 2017. And there'll be more information that comes in between now and then, and we'll be sure to come back and update the board as we move along. However, with the pressure of inflation on healthcare expense, it would be unlikely to think that we're going to be able to go past 2017 without making some type of changes. So your fiscal year will reset again on July 1. Between now and the time you start working on your next budget, we'll keep you updated on the forecast, et cetera. But we would just want to make sure that you're aware that when we come back, we'll more than likely need to be discussing either increases in the district's contribution, increases in payroll deduction, or changes in the benefits offered, or a combination of all three. But right now, things are looking good for the plan performance. They've improved as we've moved through the year. It's not as dire as it looked back in June when we had more limited data. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Is this a year-to-year contract?
With Aetna? They are, yes and no. They are obligated to, under the terms of the solicitation, they've given some guarantees on their administrative fees over the first 3 years of the contract, but the district reserves the right to terminate it on any year. So any January 1, you have an exit clause in your agreement, but Aetna is obligated to perform for the initial 3 years. And then your RFP allowed for 2 one-year extensions beyond that if you want to exercise those.
The reason why I'm asking this is because we still haven't heard from many of our employees. But in case we start having problems on this, maybe we can think of changing or something. But because of I've heard a little bit on some of them, and a lot of them are not very pleased. But yet I haven't gotten too many feedback on it. But this is what we need to know, because it's not benefiting us, it's our employees that we're concerned about. But we hate to go back to what we had before.
Sure, and that's understandable. There are a lot of claims taking place inside of any health plan. And so that it's not abnormal for some things to go wrong. Probably the most frequent issue that I see raised has to do with prescription drug coverage, and that's the highest frequency claim that you have. And anytime you make a transition, whether it's from HealthScope to Aetna, which actually the pharmacy benefit manager was Express Scripts, or whether it's from Aetna to Blue Cross or Blue Cross to whomever, every company has a different list of preferred drugs, and that generally causes some disruption. So, and we did the analysis before you made the decision to go in this direction. And at any time of a transition like that, so for example, there's 3 different tiers of copays on prescription drugs. The lowest tier is for generic. Then there's a preferred brand copay that kind of falls in the middle. And then the non-preferred brand drug copay is the highest copay for your drugs. And sometimes drugs move back and forth between the 2 companies. Sometimes drugs in the highest cost drop to the middle, and sometimes in the middle they go to the highest cost. So at any time of transition, there's usually going to be some winners and some losers. And when we did the analysis, it was a pretty strong match. But you can feel certain that anyone who had their copay go from the middle to the highest category on January 1, they'll take notice and they'll say, what happened? You know, it used to always be at the middle copay, not the highest. And that changes, you know, it's not just unique to Aetna. It's just different with each company. They have slightly different preferred drug lists. But certainly, if there are any issues or problems with members, there's the customer service unit from Aetna, the toll-free system, their online portal. And you also have a dedicated Aetna representative working here at the district on your behalf as well.
Okay.
Mr. McGraw, can you expand a little on this administrative fee, all fees, clinic expense, and why that figure went down? And also on the total annualized claims, why that number is trending down?
Sure, that's a great question. So what happens in the transition year too is under your contract with HealthScope, there were fees, they're billing a fee to process claims that were incurred in 2015. And so in the first part of 2016, they're still processing the claims that incurred in 2015. So in this transition year, there's additional fees being billed by HealthScope to clean up the claims incurred but unreported that flowed into 2016. And they're obligated to do that through the end of 2016. So come 2017, that fee will go away, and that's what is causing that one to be lowered. On the claims trend numbers, last year, the key thing there is last year you had some pretty significant large claims, and so those are being taken out of the equation and then moved over into the 2017 year.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Is that it? Okay.
Thank you. The last presentation would be at the board's discretion if you have any questions for Champagne, our internal auditor.
Anybody have any questions? Or is there anything you'd like to?
President Haggerty, board members, and Dr. Delatra. Tonight I have two people to introduce to you. Our first day for our senior staff auditor, Diana Villegas, is there? This day. And Mr. Townsend is here to answer if you have any question about the proposed bond audit plan. He's here to answer your question.
Anybody have questions related to the bond?
Very good. It's just very good to see all of you. I gave you all my contact numbers, so if you do have any questions at any time, you know where to contact me. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
Thank you.
Very good. Pleasure.
Any question for me on the reports? I changed the format a little bit, but I think it's better looking.
Thank you, Champagne.
Thank you, ma'am.
I've got just one question. Can you give us some background on Diana?
Diana?
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Diana Villegas. It's my first day here. I'm very happy to be here. Looking forward to work for the Internal Audit Department. My background, I grew up in Mexico, in Juarez, actually, all the way through high school. And then I came to UTEP, graduated with my bachelor's in accounting. I'm working towards my CPA right now, and I have 3 years and 8 months of experience in external and internal audit. So I come from a CPA firm, Lauterbach, Porsche and Company, and I'm very happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The specialty is the internal auditing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would the board like to go through the agenda real quick, or would you rather take a quick health break?
Break.
Break. Sounds good. We'll meet back at 7:20. Go ahead and look at the consent agenda, and if there's anything anyone would like to pull for further discussion or for an individual vote, please signify by clicking the speaker button on your electronic system, your digital board room. Then item number 1, celebrate Freedom Week proclamation. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Number 1. Do you have any questions, or you just wanted to? For 2, adopt the resolution committing the fund balance of Funds 461 and 468 campus operating funds to the respective campuses generating the fund balance.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. You
I
can
have a
just
little bit of,
click your button real quick.
I guess I didn't have enough paper.
You can click your speaker thingy,
My what?
your speaker button.
I don't have the,
Gotta go back to the. Awesome. Thank you, ma'am.
so, I'm having a hard time understanding the funds moved from where to where.
So no funds are being moved. These are campus activity funds that we are committing per campus. So if a campus raises this money, we want to make sure it stays at that campus. So we commit the fund balance to a particular campus.
Oh, the fund balance.
Yes,
That's where I got mixed up right there.
Okay?
So it's not the fund balance from the district, right?
No,
It's
ma'am.
their fund balance.
Yes, ma'am. It's
Okay.
their campus activity funds.
Oh, okay. Now I understand. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are no further questions. Number 3, accept monthly financial statements as identified in a separate index, including quarterly investment reports as of July 31st, 2016. 4, accept a donation to Parkland Middle School in the amount of $15,000 to assist at-risk students. Question?
Yeah, I just have a question about that. What kind of at-risk services are they going to provide? Do we know?
In terms of the detail, let me look and just see if they gave me enough detail. I know that it was primarily driven by a need for homeless students and their
okay.
particular, for washing machines to help them wash clothes, for some very,
Wow.
let me give you industrial washer and dryer, school supplies, thank you, Mary, school uniforms, some extracurricular activities equipment that could be used for like athletics or fine arts, but these are primarily children who are homeless and don't have access to any of these things.
That's great. Thank you. Would we want to pull this to have a thank you
Yes, ma'am, you just
given
beat
to
me
that?
it.
So let me just say that the reason we don't have a donor's name specified is because the donor did ask specifically.
Right, but we
to-
can still say thank you.
Yes,
I
ma'am, you
think.
certainly may. So we are pulling that one?
Yes,
Did I
ma'am.
Just to
understand?
say thank you.
May I just ask a question of,
Yes, sir.
of our superintendent? This raised a question I have regarding the Tejas School. 'Cause we have quite a few people in that kind of situation where they're homeless, and are we, have we done anything, or has the community been aware that there's a need down there at that school?
Not specifically. What we can do is we can go into their enrollment and their admissions, registration paperwork, and determine how many of those students qualify for the homeless services, because they're required under the McKinley-Bento, is it? The McKinley-Bento Act does give us additional resources and monies to support those students, those families, and so if they're there, they're receiving
Oh, they are?
enhanced
They
services.
are receiving money?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms.
That-
Gooden?
That's the only question I had.
Do we have, how many schools do we have with homeless?
All of them probably have.
All of them have?
Some.
Okay, so it's district-wide.
Thank you.
Now that we've gotten on that topic, does anyone have the definition of homeless, what qualifies a student to be homeless? Because I know several years ago it was expanded to include anybody that's moved in with a relative, and so does anyone have that handy?
Wait, I can get it to you right now if you give me a couple minutes. If not, I'll send it out to you, but I'll get it for you.
You guys like to move on while we wait for the answer? Are there any further questions on that particular item? Not? Number 5, approve the disposal of unusable surplus inventory by sale at a public auction scheduled for October 1st, 2016. Number 6, approve the application for class size waiver to be submitted to the Texas Education Agency for campuses having classrooms in grades K through 4, slightly over the 22-to-1 class size limit.
I do.
Hit the button real quick.
My question is, do we have a lot of schools with this? I know there were some of them, but is that a list of schools that we had? Is that just on the list, or is that means it's district-wide?
We currently have 12 campuses that are applying for a waiver. And the waiver's only for classrooms that have 1 to 2 students over. If they have any more than that, then we're overflowing them to other campuses.
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Mrs. McLean?
That information was in our information that was sent to us on the workshop, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
In the meantime, Mrs. Chacon, have you found that definition? Were you able to find that definition? Oh, awesome. Thank you. Mr. Rosales, did you have any questions on number 6? Class size waiver? Okay.
Okay, you guys ready?
Yes,
There's
ma'am.
7 indicators for homeless. Children sharing housing due to economic hardship or loss of housing. Children living in motels, hotels, trailer parks, or campgrounds, or due to lack of alternative accommodations. Children living in emergency or transition shelters. Children awaiting foster care placement. Children whose primary nighttime residency is not ordinarily used as a regular sleeping accommodation, such as park benches, things like that. Children living in cars, parks, public spaces, abandoned buildings, substandard housing, bus, or trains.
Move on to number 7. Approve YISD contract 2017-0164 with Communities in Acción to support CEA Passos 2, Partners Advocating STEM Opportunities for Student Success Mentoring Pilot Strategic Initiative shall become effective upon signature by the authorized officials from CEA and YISD at no cost to the district and will remain in effect until modified or terminated by any one of the partners by mutual consent. Number 8, approve YISD contract 2017-0168 with Instructional Research Group to conduct a study to examine the effectiveness of a professional development program in vocabulary with 8th grade teachers of U.S. history effective during the 2016-17 school year at no cost to the district. We'll move on to action items. Number 1, consider and take possible action to approve 2015 bond audit plan. 2, approve YISD contract 2017-0175 with ABM Building Services LLC for turnkey energy efficiency improvements in Phase 1 sites for $11,396,500 and at district's option at Phase 2 and Phase 3 sites for up to $50 million for an optional annual renewable monitoring service contingent upon receipt of UAR verification for all phases and legal counsel approval of final contract. Mrs. McLean, you had a question?
So I sent in my questions with regard to this contract. And, you know, I know that I was sent a link, or I guess we were all sent a link to a 700-page document, which I don't know, I'm not a fast reader, but there's no way that I could read 700 pages from today to Wednesday, and I have other things to do. So I still have a lot of questions with regard to this up to $50 million project. And so I haven't even seen the results of that audit that was done. So with regard to that, I would ask that possibly this item be postponed so that the board can have an opportunity, if they so choose, to review that information so that they are afforded the opportunity to become fully informed of what the district is going to enter into.
Dr. David, do you have a response?
We certainly serve at the pleasure of the board. If the board would like to do that, we'd be happy to do that. The AUR, I believe, is the certification that the savings or the conclusions surrounding savings that ABM presented as part of Phase 1. And Phase 1, if you recall, applies to 20 of our 62 schools. And we can certainly provide that information to the board, but it really is up to you whether or not you'd like to have more time to review that document.
Do you have any of those folks here who could?
They are here. As a matter of fact, if you have questions, we have procurement here. Ms. Austin has been very involved. Mr. O'Neill has been involved. Ms. Leeper has been very involved. She's the one that would secure the financing model for this project. The idea, of course, is that utilities and energy is getting more and more expensive every year. Because we are doing so much work at all of our schools, now might be an ideal time to consider refrigerated air units at not just the new projects, but existing projects. The premise is that once we install all of this equipment, that the savings that we would capture from reduced utility costs would more than account for our annual cost, and then there would be residual money in addition to that. And that's what I think ABM has presented. I think the neutral third-party evaluator has considered and concluded that it's not $14 million, that I believe he feels it more comfortable around $11 million.
Mm-hmm. From what I remember reading, it was supposed to be like a $16 million savings, and it went down to 14.
Yeah, 16 to 14. But the key here is that if we fail to capture those savings, ABM is required to pay the delta for the next 15 years on the annual, I believe, contribution. And I think Lindley estimated that phase one would be somewhere around $1.7 million in savings would have to be captured, or would that be
That's actually
for all three
24
phases?
Yes. So first, Ms. McLean, my apologies. That Dropbox link is the audit report. It is 750 pages long. I didn't want to filter information, but it's not possible to email that much, so Dropbox link was the only way I could get it to you. But in terms of what Dr. De La Torre is saying, there is some time sensitivity to this because these projects are underway. The way these projects work is that after the audit is done, they determine that they can generate this much in savings for those various things, either through HVAC, LED lighting, building automation, window glazing, or envelope and infiltration improvements to the buildings. The third-party reviewer looks at all of those energy savings calculations and then asks questions. They go back and forth until the third-party reviewer is satisfied that those calculations are correct. Those calculations those savings are then supplemented by some operational savings internally. We are almost at the phase where I would feel comfortable certifying from a financial point of view that yes, the savings they're going to generate are sufficient to cover the cost to implement. And by state law, it must be. So we can't proceed if those savings are not sufficient to cover the cost of the improvements. And we are within a day of having all of that wrapped up, which is why I think it's being presented to you this evening.
So then by not waiting, how much money, or by waiting, how much money are we looking at losing? And then how many other projects will be put?
There's always a cost delay or a cost increase when you delay implementation of a project. I haven't calculated because I don't really know when you would delay to. You know, are we talking 5 years? Are we talking after the bond program? So those are factors we would certainly want to consider if you think that you may want to delay.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My thought to delay was just for the next month. I wasn't contemplating going out 5 years. I was just, I think, wanting the opportunity to be able to, you know, for those who want to, have the opportunity to review that information and become informed and comfortable before they vote on this potentially up to $50 million project. Also, you know, it has not been, and I know that was one of my questions, I'm not aware as to exactly what those savings are going to be used for. So as a board member, I would want to know, you know, in advance, what are we going to use? I'm not opposed to this. I think it's a good idea, you know, in concept. I think the concept is good. I'm okay with what we've heard so far, but we've not had the audit results. I think you all received them today, right?
We received the certification from the third-party reviewer today.
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, to me, it's premature to have this on the agenda. I would hope that we could postpone this possibly just to next month to give the board members an opportunity to review. But of course, I'm one vote, and that's, you know, that would be my hope, was that we have an opportunity to review the information so we could be informed as to what exactly we're voting on.
I prefer not to wait. I'd rather get on the cost savings. I wouldn't mind seeing a presentation if there's one available.
Yeah, I know we have some people from ABM. Did you have a presentation that you could share with the board? Yes, please.
Mr. Pearson, did you want to wait for the presentation, or did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't have to wait for the presentation. Excuse my ignorance, but how do you guys make money on this? Okay. A percentage or? Yeah. Okay. Can I ask what that is?
So
How do we get this on?
Oh, you might want to.
Wake the boys up in the room back there and let them know we need some technical support.
And sir, there is a question. How much do you guys make?
Mike?
Okay, so it is a turnkey project. In other words, it's 11.39 million, and theirs is built into that. It's not specifically or separately stated to us.
That
So one of the factors that we've been considering in light of that is when we take those model numbers of the HVAC and the train and we go and compare that model number, what price can we buy it for, and is it reasonable? So Mr. O'Neill's crew is actually taking all the specifications for each of these particular schools in this phase one, and they're saying we need 252 units, I think, all total. And is it a 1 ton, a 3 ton, a 5 ton, or whatever? How many do we need, and what's the price we could obtain it for? So we can calculate, is it reasonable? Is this 11.39 million plus the services they're rendering within that comparable to what we would pay for that equipment and monitoring it if we did it ourselves?
Mr. Rosales, did you want to wait for the presentation?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I wanted to get a quick explanation. I guess I'm also inquisitive about the $50 million. I don't believe in just giving money away. But that would be phase two, is that correct?
Well, I think that is.
Yes, I understand that. Mhm.
For phase one and phase two combined will probably be in the $35 million range when it's all said and done. And again, that's driven by the savings we can generate. That's not a number we make up. When we go out and do the UAR, or some people call the investment grade audit, the savings we can capture is the money that we have to work with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so members of the board, Dr. Delatorre, Board President Haggerty. My name is Dan Callahan, for those of you who don't know me with ABM. Mike Reese is joining me here. He's the Director of Texas. We also have our engineer, in case we have any technical questions, Todd Havilar, and our Senior Vice President. Again, yeah, I'm going through the project.
You want to ask?
So basically, yeah, this is nothing new. We've been talking to the administration for over 18 months now on a project that we can develop energy savings. It comes back to a concept back in the spring of 2015, talking with folks. At the time, we were looking at going out for the May bond for 2015, and we knew that that was about roughly $450 million. Anyway, with that said, Dr. Delatorre and staff had brought us back in the summer of last year to kind of discuss the delta between the first bond, the second bond, and seeing how we can pick up some of the additional projects that were going to be stripped from the May bond to the November bond. LED lighting, looking at HVAC, HVAC units, replacing maybe swamp coolers for refrigerated air. So we're looking at these efficiencies, these types of things that you were looking to do in the original bond, but now you couldn't. So we're looking at maybe leveraging Texas legislation to see how we can do so. So with that said, the district had conducted a extensive RFQ process and brought in a number of energy companies like ourselves to compete for your business. At that point, you had approved us, ABM, to go through the investment grade audit, which is also the UAR report by the State Education Conservation Organization. And with those studies, we needed to do a comprehensive study of all of your buildings because the district's so big, and we were trying to adhere to the VLK timeline with the bond and all the construction that's going on. We decided to break that up into phases to hit those schools that had immediate impacts. With that said, again, it was like this phase one was, roughly a 700-page report, and we just finalized the next 54 buildings that we see great opportunities. Again, some of the impetus to drive this project as the El Paso electric rate increase. You suffered a 14% increase back in April. That's roughly $700,000 a year that the school now just has an increased electricity cost with. And that's just operating now with any new buildings or any new equipment or anything going in. And then in January, we're also looking at maybe another 10% increase. So looking at a total combined hit on the school's budget of $1.3 million. So that was something that was of interest to Dr. Delatorre and staff on, hey, how do we combat this unfunded mandate, so to speak, on how we're going to operate the schools. Again, looking at the disparity of the two bonds, you have $20 million that you were trying to that you had just basically lost to make these upgrades to the school district. So how is a way that we can possibly do? And again, we're looking at HVAC, or our lighting equipment that's outdated and inefficient. We're looking at new LED lighting that can reduce the cost by up to 50%. Those types of costs can help offset more expensive equipment like HVAC units, chillers, boilers, more expensive things. So it's a comprehensive project to look at everything collectively across the school. Again, this adheres to the 2020 vision, creating enhanced learning environment, more controlled environment for the kids, better air quality, leads to increased test scores, less absentees, things like that. So it's a great program overall. And I wanted to turn over to Mike to kind of talk a little bit about the legislation and some of the specifics we saw in some of the.
So you had mentioned the 700 plus pages, and so what we try to do is give you the Cliff Notes executive summary here. So we'll feel free to stop and ask questions, or obviously we'll take those at the end. So a summary of the program, again, I want to reiterate, this is a self-funding program. It is guaranteed by the Texas Education Code 44.901. What we're tasked with is coming up with capital infrastructure upgrades to offset some of the losses from Bond 1 to Bond 2. That number is probably going to settle out right around $34 or $35 million. Again, this is no additional taxpayer burden. We're capturing waste in the buildings and using it for the capital improvements. A lot of those, and you'll see we have some specifics on the slides, is going to center on LED lighting, HVAC replacement, and building automation and controls. And again, we really think this dovetails with the district's 2020 strategic plan, hoping to create a 21st learning environment. And everything we've done has to meet or exceed the technical guidelines developed as part of the bond program. So phase 1 consists of these 20 schools. I won't read them all to you. A quick summary of the improvements. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. This is a sampling of some of the larger, what we call energy conservation measures, or ECMs, anything that can drive savings. So again, almost 33,000 new LED light fixtures, 250 plus HVAC units being replaced, recommissioning or otherwise refurbishing anything that is not being replaced. Building automation system will be a major focus. So operations has the ability to control things more accurately. Other things include building envelope, which is things like window film, weather stripping, and plug load management systems. So we picked out 3 buildings. We have a sheet for these on all 20 of phase 1. We're happy to share with you. We didn't want to waste a lot of time going through all 20. We picked a sampling of 3. So I'll go through the first one in a little bit of detail and then move through the other 2 quickly because they're all very similar. So again, this is at Constance Halbert Elementary. You look at the current conditioning, obviously a large LED lighting upgrade potential. The building automation system, a lot of room for improvement where we can schedule things tighter. Really replacing and upgrading all the HVAC equipment, which a lot of that has already exceeded its natural useful life. And again, things like building envelope, helping to reduce infiltration. So I won't read all the ECMs or the energy conservation measures. We talked about those in the last page, but again, a big focus on lighting, HVAC, and controls. So again, at Ysleta High School, very similar. I won't read all this to you. And we have one of these for every building for your review. And the last one we had in the presentation tonight was DeVal High School, a very similar situation. In each, you look at the financials for each campus. Some campuses have a greater opportunity to drive savings because of the opportunities, and some lesser.
Can you explain that 1.4 when compared to the 2.2? In other words, define for us what
Correct. So the total investment for this building is $1.46 million, and the savings over the life of the program will exceed $2.2 million. So this building will actually allow us to do capital improvements and drive a positive cash flow for the district.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the schools, they're all refrigerated, right?
They are currently now. So there's a mix. Some of that is being addressed through the bond, and some of it is being addressed through our program. Yes, ma'am.
But they've all got refrigerated, so you're replacing what?
Right, yeah, we are certainly not going backwards in technology. Yes, ma'am. Maybe I'll clarify. Not all of our schools have refrigerated air. Many of them have evaporative cooling. She wants to know whether or not your program...
Or they have mixed.
Right, so there's two approaches to that, and you'll see that on the financial summary slide. Some of what we're replacing will actually free up some bond dollars that it is your discretion to use for things like moving from swamp coolers to refrigerated air.
Right, because
great.
you go into the schools right now, especially in my area, and it looks like a sauna.
Yes, ma'am.
And you come out of there like sweating. And so it's real bad. And for, we'd like to have, like Dr. De La Torre said, refrigerated air throughout the district.
Right, that's a great question. So yes, we are replacing refrigerated air, but we're also freeing up some bond dollars that you had allocated for that to do things like that. So you can keep that momentum and do more of that. So what's the economic impact of phase one? Again, everything we're talking about here is phase one only. The program, the energy savings are going to fund about $11.4 million that will fund all the capital improvements in those 20 buildings we listed. Over the life of the program, it's going to generate over $15 million in savings. And again, the key here is the district keeps all the positive cash flow. And on top of that, we've addressed about $2.5 million worth of items that were in the bond that you now have that pool of money to do with as you see fit for things like moving to refrigerated air in some of the other buildings. So again, this is all guaranteed savings to the district. So Dan had this slide up earlier. I'm not going to read it to you again, but I think the important part is, we'll move down to the middle, is we submitted the UAR, and that's the 700-page report that you referenced. And that is the detail of how we're going to do that. That is the blueprint for all the energy conservations by school. It has received the third-party certification, which is your champion. It's part of the state code that says, yes, what ABM presented is valid and true. These savings are reasonable to meet. What we're looking for on Wednesday is approval. Once we see that, we will actually execute a contract, and we are actually hoping to begin what we call some of the lower hanging fruit projects, mainly focused on lighting, things that aren't going to disturb the learning environment, because we can start reaping those savings for you quicker. Some of the other projects, HVAC-based, will obviously take place on breaks. Christmas, spring break, and a lot of things will happen in the summer with an anticipated completion date prior to school starting of 2017. Yes, ma'am.
One of our big issues is that we've got a lot of old schools, being that we're 100 years old already, but that's one of our issues, that even if we come to this, upgrade this, a lot of our windows are very bad.
Right. So the building envelope, ECM that I mentioned earlier, that includes a lot of those things. Building envelopes means helping reduce the air infiltration, weather stripping. Could be something like window film to prevent UV rays and heating your buildings up in the summer. So building envelope will be a big portion of that.
Mrs. McLean, you had a question?
Yes, I've got a question. With regard to your previous projects that you've worked on, there were several school districts. Can you give me the size of those projects and the size of those school districts?
We've done everything from as small as $1 million project with a small school district to, we recently finished a project in the Georgia area, probably right around $35 million total. So we're very familiar with very large districts and also very small districts that we've worked with.
So this would be your biggest project, right? I mean, if you're...
Well, it depends on how you define biggest. Dollar amount, square footage amount. Dollar amount, it'd probably be one of our largest ones. We also do a lot of projects on the federal government side that are very large in scope. So for a K-12 project, this would be a larger project. Most projects are that $5 to $10 million range. But again, we're taking this in phases. We have a very experienced team that has been living here. We've actually rented apartments here in El Paso because this has become our second home. And we really have our A team here ready to execute for you guys.
I've got another question. I know this is kind of not a question that you would have been anticipating, but could you give me an estimate as to what the foregone savings would be if we were to postpone this to September?
Well, I can kind of work backwards. The anticipated annual savings is right around, I think, $850,000 a year. So on monthly, very, very simplistically, you could divide that by 12 months and
It'd be close to $80,000.
Yeah, $70,000, $80,000.
But that would be generated at the tail end, right? I mean, it would just be postponed.
Well, again, you could look at it that way, but again, utility savings are like water under a bridge. Once they pass under that bridge, you will never capture those dollars again. So this month, if you wait a month, those are savings that are gone. And that's probably the best way I can answer that question.
Okay. And then, I've had one more question. The equipment that you are proposing to to put in. Is that in accordance with,
The bond specifications?
yes, bond spec?
Yes, ma'am.
specs?
Everything we have has to meet that at a minimum.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Pearson?
Actually, this question, Dr. Delatorre, did we check with any of the districts that they've worked with and all of that to see,
As
you know,
part
kind
of
of a
the
check?
RFP, RFQ process, they list references that we reach out to.
Yes.
Yes, Christine.
Yes. And we provided a copy of the reference summary with the BC today, where we called and
So
checked.
those
those
are
references.
available to you.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Yes, sir.
Now I have a better understanding. In essence, what you're saying, we would provide $11.3 million. You guarantee a $15 million savings.
Yes, sir.
So then if you move into 20 million, phase two, and again, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but you're looking at probably saving, let's say another, 20-some million dollars. I don't, I want to be prudent about what we're doing, but delaying something that's very obvious, I was afraid of the 50 million, I'm very honest with you. But if just the savings alone, the first phase is literally what, $4.7 million. What are we waiting for? And that's my perspective. You vote any which way you want. But to me, and another issue that I'd like to share is that and you made comment about that. Our electric company is not going to wait and see if maybe we can live with another rate adjustment. They're going to continue hammering us anytime they want. So I feel, from my perspective, 11.3 saved me $15 million. I think it's a good return. I'm very much to move in on this project now. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Rosales, you said you understood this to be an $11 million investment that was going to produce $50 million in savings? That's not how this is going to work.
Well, this is what he just presented.
So we'll go back to that slide. So the capital investment required for phase one, again, this is all phase one, is $11.4 million. This will generate $15 million over the life of the program. So we'll have a positive cash flow, which again, is the district's money. And again, you may use that at your discretion for other things such as refrigerated air upgrades and things of that nature.
Would that be district-wide?
Again, this is the 20 buildings in phase one. As we expand this to phase two, obviously this then becomes, probably that $30 to $35 million range.
Now on this slide, 15.2 minus 11.4 doesn't equal 2.5. So is it an extra 2.5 or is it?
Right. So all the positive cash flows of districts. 100%. This is not a.
Well, what's the 2.5? What?
At the bottom, and that is projects that we are going to do that was originally in the bond program. So that's an additional 2.5 that you have now left over in the bond
that we're not going to spend
to do as you see. Again, that's obviously the district's choice to do what you guys, but it gives you guys flexibility within your bond program.
So ideally, big picture, remember we had the option of evaporative coolers, replacing evaporative coolers, and that is what the Facility Advisory Committee approved when they sent the $430.5 million bond package. The option to go with refrigerated air would have cost an additional $30 million. So our interest is trying to take that 2.5, that 4, and then there will likely be, if it's 40 more schools, there will likely maybe be another $5 million in phase two. Now that's 7.5. We've got projects that are coming in significantly under budget. So we're trying to find $30 million to put refrigerated air at every school in the district by combining things and even considering maybe some fund balance if there's $5 million here at some point to bring the district into the 21st century where every school has refrigerated air for students. And these are the pieces of it. So we'll never come to the board and recommend that we take that money and do new tile or carpet. We're really focused on how do we turn that money around. And as VLK, is addressing some of the life cycle issues at our schools, that's when we want to come to you and say, can we use some of this residual money and put in refrigerated air units instead of evaporative cooling units? And if we do it well over that 5-year period, very deliberately, very strategically, we don't deviate from the Facility Advisory Committee, but we improve on the evaporative cooling that they approved or that we presented to the board with these monies, is the kind of the vision.
Any further questions?
Yeah, well, it's just a comment. I've been to a lot of our schools, and they're really bad. And I don't know how those teachers can teach and how those students can learn at all ages.
Yeah.
We need it.
And that's why we really try to focus on making this part of moving you guys to a 21st century learning environment and giving you guys some financial flexibility to do so.
And that was our dream, to go district-wide, because some of those kids are just learning in soaked and playing outside, coming back in, and it's not any better. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and move on to number 3. Consider and take possible action to approve a reimbursement resolution to reimburse the general fund for projects identified in Phase 1 of the Energy Audit and Utility Assessments Report. Number 4, ratify change order number 1 to YISD contract 2016-0457 with Hurricane Enterprises LLC to increase the fee by an amount of $4,258 and changing the substantial completion date from July 20th, 2016 to August 8th, 2016 for the Riverside High School ceiling tile replacement and additional rooms from various district funds, contingent upon legal review and approval of contract change order.
I have a question.
You just click your
Oh, I don't.
You got to turn off the.
Just a little, Mr. O'Neill, clarification. Because we know how that school is. It's got leaks all over the place. But what rooms are these? Is that the 200 hall?
It's the 200 hall. Yes, ma'am. We had gone in as part of the bond. We were doing some connectivity, running some wires. And so we felt, while we're in that part of the building, let's go ahead and finish the abatement, because we had to do some abatement. So we went in and did the abatement. We were going to issue another purchase order for the build back, but we were told that it's really a change order to the original because you were dealing with the same part of the building. So that's the reason we're coming to you now. It had to do with the ceiling tiles.
And then does this also include the bathroom that's next to the library that collapsed, or?
No, ma'am. But we went back in after you had given us a call, and Mr. Rodriguez had sent a crew in there, and also a couple of those other areas you had concerns about.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Number 5, approve award of YSD solicitation Bond 07 CSP BP 06 Eastwood Knolls additions and renovations for $6,569,275 from bond funds. Woodruff, you had a question?
Yes, my question is that when I was looking at that, it seems like that actually only one bid was turned in. So, I mean, because out of the 3 that turned in bids, 2 were not accepted. Am I correct in that, or am I?
Yes, ma'am, you're correct.
Okay, and so just because of that, I'm still wondering if that was still the best value, if this company has the experience that they need. I mean, because if we're just accepting one bid, then.
We considered both of the bids, but when we reviewed it with legal, they were technically not responsive. They didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They included fees they shouldn't have included, and so they were disqualified. In terms of pricing and in value, we do believe this vendor is the best value. It is a local vendor. They've done similar projects of the same scope and size throughout the city of El Paso.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Button real quick.
Is this the first time we get the contract with them?
Yes, ma'am, I do believe this is this is the first of the 2015 bond projects to be awarded to this vendor.
Okay.
Any other questions? Number 6, consider and take possible action to name the official 2016-17 TASB delegate and name the TASB alternative for YISD. And originally this had my name on there because the way that the email came in, I was the one from last year. But I'd certainly like to open that up for anyone who feels they'd like to try it. That's where, I think you've been a delegate in the past, haven't you? And it's certainly something interesting and worth doing, where you get a chance to meet and work with the other school board members from across the state and work on legislation and see what it is you want to have them, not necessarily lobby, but to go and work with the state representatives to see what we can't do as far as education at the state level. There's something to think about for tomorrow. Any questions or comments? I don't mind doing it again. Policy action items. Number 1, consider and take possible action to adopt policy EHBAF, special education, video audio monitoring as recommended by TASB update number 106. Number 2, adopt on first reading Ysleta specific revisions to policy CE regarding the annual operating budget. We'll then move into closed executive meeting to discuss with legal counsel regarding possible claim for damages due to painting overspray and the superintendent's formative evaluation. Reconvene in open session, and after that, we get to go home. Before we leave tonight, I'd like to just remind the board, and just in case Mrs. McLean and Ms. Duenas, if we didn't get a chance to inform you, last meeting we had talked about the YEF scholarships and the golf tournament that's coming up and how they do their fundraising through Cheekers, the Jeans and Sneakers program, where they're asking for donations from the teachers in order to wear their jeans on Fridays. So what I was looking at doing was to give everybody an envelope, whether they'd like to make a donation or not. There'll be a donation in the envelope already. That way we can come on Wednesday in our jeans and sneakers and show our support to the Ysleta Education Foundation in their upcoming golf tournament.
Okay.
I'll certainly entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Be in the meeting at 8:18.